husband came home earlier than expected and caught me mid-act with the delivery guy. It got pretty messy within a blink of an eye. I will use fake names to keep and respect the privacy of, well, my name is Courtney Willis, female 25, and my husband Kenneth Einstein, male 31. We have been married for 2 years. Kenny, that's how I call my husband, and I met at some business event that had taken place in the restaurant that I was working at. I don't really remember much about our first encounter, but all I know is that I saw a polite, handsome guy. He came to me and asked for my service at their table, of which I gladly did. Not because I wanted to, but because he had approached me in a very calm, respectful, and polite manner. You know, some afforded people don't respect people like us who are waitresses. They tend to treat us like garbage. They want us to bow down to them just because they have money and we are hustling for a better life and survival. When I got to Kenny's table, I assisted them with what they needed. So when the event finished, Kenneth came to me at the counter and gave the biggest tip. I was so happy because I was going to be able to provide for my grandmother and my 6-year-old little sister. A few weeks later, Kenny came back again to the restaurant and gave me his business card. He told me to call him because he had an offer for me. I didn't understand what he was trying to say because I didn't know him and he didn't know me, so why would he come to my workplace and tell me that he has something to offer me? I felt offended, like he looked at me and felt pity and decided to make me a charity case. I didn't know what he wanted to offer me. My mind was running. I had thought maybe he wanted to kidnap me and sell me to the highest bidder. We no longer trust anyone nowadays. People just get missing every single day of our lives. So it wasn't easy to just trust him more, especially since he was a man of standards like him. He looked like those types of men who didn't settle for less, who loved those Barbie dolls who want to be ladies while I was just a simple and natural girl. Anyways, days later, I called the number that Kenny had given me the last day we saw each other. To my surprise, it was answered by him. At first, I got tongue-tied. I regretted even calling because I didn't know what to say. I was really lost for words. Is this even normal and possible to just get lost for words when you have to speak? So as he was about to hang up, I decided to speak. I don't really remember what I had said, but I remember him asking to meet up with me. I hesitated at first, but I eventually gave in. 2 days later, we met and somehow we clicked. I had thought he was a man who was always serious and always talking about work, but with him, that wasn't the case. He was a very free-spirited person and I enjoyed his company. We got a chance to get to know each other better on that day. He was actually not that type of arrogant guy because they have money. Kenny was just a sweetheart, and his personality and the real Kenny in general made me fall in love. Well, not really in love, but I developed a crush on him. A few months later, we started dating. Kenny was a peaceful guy, but I had once noticed something when someone bumped into his car. He got furious. He even changed color. He became red in an instant. He had once told me that the car he was driving was his favorite because it was a gift from his late father. So the guy who bumped into his car was arrogant, and he wasn't sorry for what he had done. Instead, he told him that the next time he should focus on where he was going and not stop the car everywhere. I saw that the other guy was kind of intoxicated, but Kenny didn't care about all that. And another thing, the robot was red, meaning the wrong person was the other guy. Kenny attacked the guy and started calling him names. I understood his anger and frustrations, but he was doing it too much. To say I got scared would be an understatement. I was terrified. I asked myself who was the person that I had fallen in love with. What he did was somehow, I don't know how I can explain this, but it made me have some sort of second thoughts about our relationship. Several months in a relationship with Kenny, he decided to pop the biggest question ever. Mind you, had fallen so hard for Kenny. That time we were on a journey of healing for him so he would be able to control his anger issues and mental breakdown. I was glad that he had opened up with me with his biggest secret behind the mental breakdown that usually did. I promised to be there for him through every struggle and health. We both loved each other deeply, and our future looked bright. But what did I do? One fateful day, I had noticed that Kenny was acting differently. He seemed distant, and his usual cheerful demeanor was nowhere to be found. I tried to talk to him about it, but he brushed her concerns aside, claiming it was just a bad day at work. At first, I didn't want to bother him or become a nuisance to him for always asking what was wrong with him, up until I saw that he was getting more and more distant, and his behavior was not changing even one bit. So one day, he had invited me to be his +1 at his work's function. For some reasons, I agreed to be his +1. I mean, he was my man after all, and I didn't want to stay at home and be bored. So I said, why not? Such opportunities come once in a blue moon. My husband was not the kind of a guy that would randomly ask you to be his +1 in a formal function at his work. I would sometimes wonder who he was taking because he was not asking me. and the day he asked me to be his plus one was the first one. The weekend of the function came, and I was super excited. Not because I was going to a function, but because my husband had thought of me for once and made me his plus one. Kenny was a financial manager at his workplace, which was why I had thought that maybe he was the boss when I first saw him hosting an event like this kind of thing at the restaurant that I had been working at. Only to find out later that it was just a small and intimate event that his boss had asked him to host just to honor and appreciate his employees, especially those in the financial department. So the people that were there were his team. Anyway, when we got to the function, I was mesmerized by the decor, the settings, and everything. It was just so amazing. I noticed that other staff members were welcoming and loving. Mind you, it was my first time going to my husband's workplace. I had never been there before, and I felt really important when Kenny invited me to go with him at his work's function. He introduced me to his team members and other employees. Then at the end, he introduced me to his boss. His boss looked very young and charming. The gentleness in his was one of the things that made him look incredible. My relationship, or let me say marriage with Kenneth, was just everything. You know, the kind of love that you only see on TV shows or maybe Netflix movies and series? That was the kind of love that we had shared. I loved the fact that he understood me, and the fact that I do not like cooking, so most of the time we would order in. Not that I didn't like cooking at all, because I would cook sometimes when I'm in the mood, but it was not an everyday thing. So one chilled day, my husband and I were just chilling in our house, talking about us and how far we have got. You know, Kenny and I have been through so many challenges, and other challenges were too heavy to a point that we saw our relationship hanging over a cliff. But we won all of that and conquered. He told me that we should order in because he was craving for seafood that day, and that I shouldn't cook, which was just music to my ears because I can say that I am a lazy bun, but when it comes to cooking only. I would manage to make breakfast and maybe lunch, but when it was time to prepare dinner, I don't know what was happening to me because I would just be tired and annoyed at the sight of pans and pots. So that day I had ordered his seafood from his favorite restaurant down the road. While I just decided to just order online at McDonald's, I just wanted their McFeast and ice cream. Kenny's food got delivered first when I went to take a shower. Then after about an hour my food came. I shouted for Kenny, but he was not responding. Mind you, that time the bell was ringing. You know, I had no choice but to take a towel and cover myself so I could release the poor guy. When I opened the door to accept my delivery, I couldn't believe my eyes. I didn't know that there were such handsome and light caramel guys working at McDonald's. I zoned out the same time as I opened the door and came face to face with such a god in human form. You know, those like Will Smith that do have to work too hard to keep their handsomeness. The poor man was just yummy and I couldn't help it. Since then, when I would order at McDonald's, I would be specific about the person that I want to be my delivery guy. I would even go to McDonald's and pretend to buy something just because I wanted to see that man. The way things I would even fantasize about the poor guy, mind you, I didn't even know his name. I would sometimes help myself a little downer while thinking about the guy and imagined him on top of me or having those sexual healing moments together. I kept doing that until Kenny noticed and asked why I was helping myself while he was there. You know, I just ignored him and continued with what I was doing. I know that I shouldn't have been a psycho over a delivery guy, but I couldn't help it, you know. Days passed, and you know I was happily married to my husband, and we had been together for many years, and the S** was good. However, I had always been a bit curious about the world beyond our town, you know. I wanted to know how it was to do some things outside our marriage, and the McDonald guy was always on my mind. That time, my husband had started focusing more on his business work than in our marriage. He was not always home. He would go on business trips for like a week, and I got bored, so I started exploring what I had been missing in my marriage with Kenny. Another thing, I was not in my moods because whenever I would order or go to McDonald's, I wouldn't see the delivery guy. At that point, I didn't even know his name. So I ordered at McDonald's again while I was busy scrolling through my phone. That time it was hot, so I was wearing a very revealing short that showed my bums a little and a sports bra. I was just not caring about anything in the world. I went to accept my order while busy going through my phone. The way I was so clued on my phone, I didn't even look up to see who was delivering my order. I heard him greeting me. That was when I took my attention off the phone to see if my ears were not deceiving me. When I looked up, I saw him. He was right in front of me. The delivery guy was at my doorstep. You know how girls act when they see their crush? Well, that was what happened to me. I just felt the need to introduce myself and offered him something to drink. Of course, I had invited him in. I know I shouldn't have done that because the guy was on duty, but the girl couldn't help it. I tried making small talk because it was really awkward. So during the silent moment, I ended up confessing my crush to him. I bluntly told him that I had a huge intimate crush for him, and I would sometimes fantasize about him. When I saw that I was talking too much, I decided to ask his forename because on the delivery app it was written only his name. So I asked him to come back on his day off, but he had to first contact me to make sure that I am around. But for that, when you get the urge to just do something, yet you are kind of scared, but you know that you have to do it for your peace. I put my fears aside and asked to kiss the poor guy. I then kissed him before he even protested. I know it was very wrong and evil of me because I was married, but I couldn't help it. His lips looked appetizing. When you are married to someone who is always busy, to even give you attention for a minute or notice and appreciate everything you do is hard. Sometimes you ask yourself why you get married, or how it would have been if you didn't get married, not to your husband only, but how it would have been if you were not married at all. I just don't understand people who change after they get married. I mean, my husband, or must I say my ex-husband, was giving me so much love and attention before we got married. But after like a year into our marriage, he changed to be someone that I don't even know. It's more like I got a false advertisement of him. Lack of emotional connection and support in a marriage can lead you to try to find that connection elsewhere. I loved my husband dearly, but I just felt unappreciated and misunderstood in our marriage. As the years went by, he seemed to give me less and less attention. I started to wonder if I made the right decision marrying him. Every year I thought he was going to change. We were emotionally distant while in the same place. He didn't look at me the same way he usually did. I tried to even change the way I looked, went to the gym, and even bought myself some new clothes so he could notice me. I would sometimes ask myself if he didn't find me attractive anymore, or maybe he had found someone else better than me. But why not divorce me or tell me straight in the face that you have lost attraction, or you no longer feel me anymore, because stringing a person along while you know that you no longer feel them or love them anymore hurts more than receiving divorce papers or breakups and not getting any explanation for the separation. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Please help me understand why men do this to us but get angry when we do it to them. The only time Kenny would be available was on weekends, but he was no longer spending much time with me. The only person who was able to give me his time was Milo, male 29, fake name, the delivery guy. Since the day I kissed him, the following day he came back to my house, which was a surprise to me because I had not ordered anything but the moment I opened the door. He attacked me with a mind-blowing kiss, which led to a very heated sexual healing session. Since then, we have been seeing each other behind Kenny's back. And yes, we would meet at my house whenever Kenny was not around. So there was this day when I was at home, I was chatting with Milo. He became a very good distraction. He made me feel so much at peace, like I was loved and noticed. While my husband would shower me with romantic dinners, flowers, and all those materialistic things that I didn't really need. Even our intimate moments were no longer nice because it felt like he was being romantic because he thought it made me happy, but it was not. All I wanted was to be seen, be free, and be appreciated. And that was what Milo was giving me, the attention. As time went on, I found myself drawn to Milo's youthful energy and zest for life. I began to feel a connection with him that I hadn't felt in a long time. However, I knew that I was married and committed to Kenny. But Milo and I were spending more time together, exploring new ventures. It was fun. I got to be free and be me again. Yes, I needed a friend to pass time with, but I felt something for Gregory. Despite my initial intentions to keep things platonic, my feelings for Milo grew stronger each day. He knew his game and it was on top of this world. The guy was not only gifted in his handsomeness, but in bedroom business too. Milo and I would communicate through Discord because I didn't want my husband finding out about my abomination, so Discord was the only best option. Kenny and I had made our social media link to each other's gadgets, so we would know who we were talking to, and for our own safety, or well, maybe mine, because I would sometimes get messages from unknown numbers. They were not sending unpleasant messages, so I told Kenny about it, and luckily he had a friend who is a cybersecurity professional, who he would ask to find out who was the trespasser. Sometimes I would find myself daydreaming about him and eagerly awaiting our conversations in Discord. I would daydream about the moments that we would have together. They were always magical. Milo knew how to make a girl go crazy and beg for more of his sexual healing. Milo was a beast in bed, and it wasn't easy to get him off my mind. He was doing everything that my husband was failing to do. I mean, my husband was still in his early 30s, but the way he was acting, one would think that he had reached his menopause and maybe in his mid-50s. About a week later, my husband had been home a lot lately, and it really surprised me because I even forgot when was the last time I had seen him around the house. The worst part was not being locked up in his office, working. As much as it was supposed to make me happy, but I was not, especially for the sudden change of heart. He would still tell me that he loved me, but I didn't, and I couldn't believe it anymore. I mean, there were a lot of loopholes in his act, and it was really alarming. One would think we were so much in love and would look like the perfect couple ever. But I knew my husband, and he was hiding something from me, and I had to try and find out what he was really hiding. That time it was really hard for me to get time with Milo because our affair was a secret. I should have thought that maybe my husband was suspecting something about me. But it didn't even come to mind that maybe he wanted to plant a camera in our house. After some time, my husband's behavior went back to square one. The only difference would be that he was spending more time in his home office working on his laptop. Little did I know that he was actually watching everything that the cameras had caught. Milo and I continued seeing each other at my marital home. I know it was careless of me, of us, but I was just too lazy to even go to shops, so how would I have traveled to the hotel or B&B? Milo would come to my house as if he was delivering something to distract people and gossip mongers that we call neighbors. Our thing would last for like an hour or less. It would depend on the foreplay that Milo liked doing. He loved exploring my body, and I was enjoying it so much. So one day I was chilling with Milo after we had our lovemaking session. Milo was a very good person, smart, business-minded, and knew what he wanted. He had dreams, but because of his home situation, he ended up working at McDonald's to make ends meet. After we were done chilling, we continued where we had left off. Milo would make me scream and beg like a little kid hyping his school crush on a sports day. The way we were so caught up in the moment, we didn't even hear the door opening. You know, when you are just too deep in your moment, you sometimes don't even hear the glass breaking. Or maybe it is ignorance, right? I don't know what really happens when you are really focusing on something or deeply in the mood of a certain moment. It's like your mind and sense of hearing no longer work properly. Especially the ears, they just get closed, and that is how Kenny caught me and Milo in action. You should have seen his face. Oh my God, even today it still haunts me to a point that I would even hate the moments that I had with Milo. Kenny was in a mix of anger, disappointment, and hurt. The mind started getting its sense back when he was standing right before me, well before my face. That time I was under Milo while he was on top, and Milo didn't seem to notice him because he was too deep in it. When I opened my eyes, I was met by my husband's stiff face sitting on the glass coffee table that stays in the sitting room. Mind you, that time Milo and I were making out on the couches. I pushed Milo aside. He tried protesting, but I just spoke to my husband and asked him what he was doing at home early in the afternoon. That was when he saw that we were not alone. Milo started apologizing to Kenny, of which Kenny didn't care about because his eyes were glued on me. It was like he was searching through my soul, and it wasn't comfortable. His look was even scary, to say the least. Milo saw his opportunity to just pick up his clothes and go. That time Milo was wearing work clothes, so Kenny had seen that he was working at McDonald's. I tried reasoning with my husband and apologized, but honestly I didn't even know what I was apologizing for because I had been caught red-handed, cheating with a McDonald's delivery guy. After an hour of trying to plead with Kenny to forgive me, he asked me one question that I didn't even know how to answer. He asked what I was apologizing for. Was I apologizing at the fact that I had broken my wedding vows and cheated with not just any guy, but a McDonald's guy? Or I was apologizing because I was caught while on act, and it seemed like I was enjoying every moment of the abomination? You know, I just couldn't answer him. I didn't know how to answer him because number one, I was ashamed of the fact that my own husband had caught me cheating, and number two was the fact that I had let my desires and lust rule me and forgot that I was a married woman. As I was still trying to figure out how I would answer Kenny, he stood up and left the room. Have you seen a child being caught stealing sugar in the cupboard or taking something that doesn't belong to him without anyone knowing? But then they get caught on the act, and they would pretend like nothing happened. But in my situation, the difference was that there was no pretending. I had been caught, and I knew right there and then that my marriage was over. I had jeopardized the only thing that was going well in my life. I mean, I was just a housewife and my husband was taking care of everything, but what did I do to thank him? I showed him the most humiliating and disrespectful way of showing appreciation. After some time, he came down and found me still in the same spot. He told me to prepare for the following day since I knew that it was Thanksgiving and the families were coming over. He told me to put on my best act when the family gets here, and we would discuss the disgusting that he had found in his house after Thanksgiving. Have you heard or experienced that whenever you would wake up early in the morning because it is your favorite holiday? So you would be happy and thinking about how the day would go, even though you knew that there were underlying issues that you and your husband need to talk about. But you have to put on your best happy smile. I mean, it's your favorite holiday. You have to be happy, enjoy, and be merry despite the tension that was in the house. That day I had even forgotten about Milo because I was just focusing on the day that I knew that my family, along with my husband's, was coming over to celebrate Thanksgiving holiday with us. That is my favorite holiday because I would get a chance to appreciate those in my life and spend time with them since some live 2 hours away from us. It would always be the best moments of our lives, and I would be so happy to see my family because we didn't see each other more often. So during Thanksgiving, we would host our family to celebrate with us. It had always been my duty to do the cooking and everything, plus that time. The house was full. The whole family had come to celebrate with us. So as we were all chilling and laughing, sharing a lot about our pasts, it was a happy moment until my husband asked the kids, siblings' kids, to go play in another room because he wanted to talk with the adults. I knew that there was something deep and serious he wanted to talk about. I hoped and prayed that it was not what I had thought it was. I was crossing my fingers. I was hoping that he was not going to drop a bomb and tell us that maybe he was getting a new wife, or he wanted to introduce a child that he had made when he cheated. Didn't even think about my issue because I had clouded it and focused on the happy moment only for it to be cut short. I mean, Kenny had some days where he was acting so strange and weird, so my mind just jumped to the far end of the actual issue. But the meeting was actually about me, which came out as a very huge bomb. You know, a bazooka that was what my husband had dropped. He told the family that he had something to show them, not me hoping that he was going to show us our wedding videos just like he would always do when the family is gathered. But instead, he inserted a USB on a TV and asked everyone to enjoy the film. Imagine the nerve of embarrassing your wife like that in front of the whole family. As the video was still loading, I decided to go to the kitchen and pour myself a glass of wine. When I came back, I couldn't believe what I saw with my own eyes. I couldn't believe that my husband wanted to embarrass me in front of the family. Not only my family or his family, but even the extended families were there. I wanted to just pass out there and then. My husband was playing a very disgusting and humiliating video of me and the McDonald's delivery guy making out in our matrimonial home. It was so humiliating and embarrassing. Why would he choose the day of Thanksgiving to humiliate me like that? I had thought he loved me, you know. I understood that I had done him wrong, but I just didn't understand why he didn't or never even thought of asking me about my sexual affair with the delivery boy and tell me about the cameras that he had installed in our house. He should have told me beforehand before he played the video for the whole family to see. I would never ever forget the eyes that were on me that day. Everyone was in awe. My sister's disappointed looks, they would always haunt me. And I mean, they still haunt me till now. What Kenny did was really a very low blow and too childish. He was supposed to talk to me first or confront me before doing what he did. Did he not love me anymore to humiliate me like that? My father was really disappointed at me. I was also disappointed at myself, and I won't lie. I allowed the moment of weakness to control me, and it destroyed my whole 5 years of marriage. Imagine a 5-year marriage getting destroyed because I had let my private areas itch rule me to a point that I ended up making bad decisions. To think that my sister's child, who was 10 years old, was actually looking up to me as her role model. Now that I had made the worst and biggest mistake of my life, I didn't know how she was going to look at me anymore. Yes, the kids were not in the room when the video was played, but you will never know with kids. They are very sneaky. Kenny asked my family what he should do about me and the issue that we were facing. How could he even ask that, because he was supposed to sit me down and address the issue as married people, not to humiliate me in front of the whole family? Why would he choose such a childish act to address the issue? I just couldn't believe him. Yes, I did him wrong, but he was not supposed to address the issue the way he did. So imagine how much my name and reputation had tarnished, how much my husband's name was tarnished. It was really too much. I knew I had put myself into that deep circumstance, but I didn't know how I would take myself out of it. I was really emotionally and spiritually drained and depressed. I couldn't take off the words that Kenny's family were spitting at me, especially his mother and sisters. They would always ring in my ears. Not to mention the disappointed faces on my family. I didn't even want to think what would have happened if my mother was still alive. Surely she would have gotten a heart attack and died on the spot. So the voices got high. Kenny's family blaming my family for everything and telling them how much of a failure they were because they had failed to raise me to be an honorable woman. Some even showed their true colors, the ones I had thought I knew, especially from Kenny's family spitted the most venomous words. Some confessed how much they never liked me for their brother, while some were comparing me to Matt's ex-fiancée. As much as the video was humiliating and hurting, but the words that they were spitting were stabbing me real deep inside my heart. Mrs. Einstein, Kenny's mother, told me to pack all my belongings and leave with my family because she would never share the same house as a snake like me, and she would never allow her son to share a bed with the snake like me, because it had shown that I was pretending to love their son the whole time. It was just too much. I couldn't sit there any longer, so I decided to excuse myself and went to cry my eyes out in our matrimonial bedroom. Weeks passed. Things were very much intense. Kenny had called his lawyer and asked him to draft divorce papers. I tried asking Kenny to sit down with me so we could have a chat about the issue as adults and married people, but he wanted to hear none of the things I had wanted to say to him. He even decided to move out of the house and told me that once the divorce process has been settled, I should look for another place to stay. As I was still depressed about being divorced, I received a call from Milo telling me that he had lost his job and my husband had attacked him. He was in hospital. I didn't know what to do, and to tell the truth, I didn't even care because I wanted my husband back with me. I knew that I had to start my life from the ground up, but it wasn't going to be easy because I was not as business-minded as my husband, and I didn't know where to start fixing everything. But the only important thing I needed back was my husband. The treatment even at home changed to a point that my father didn't speak to me for 3 straight weeks. Then when he got his voice back, he told me to pack my sh*T and leave his house because I was a bad example to my sisters and their female kids. That time I didn't even know where to go and who to call during my time of need. I ended up going to my Nana's house. Yes, she was also disappointed when she heard what I had done, but she opened her warm and welcoming arms and comforted me. I really wish to have a talk with my ex-husband, but I don't know where to start. I'm still humiliated and somehow embarrassed to even face him. I want to start my life afresh, knowing that I had sorted my issues with him. What should I do? I really need any help and advice, please.